What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Blackview and the new DR900X Plus dash cam. You know, you should never compromise when it comes to protecting your car. You got to get the Blackview DR900X Plus Series dash cam. It's got a 4K ultra high resolution front camera and it will capture every detail around you, because 4K in a dash cam, it's not a gimmick. It's a game changer, right? You want to be able to zoom in on that shot, read that license plate, get that person's face, get those details, right? It's got the ultra-high resolution front camera and a Sony Starvis sensor in the rear camera. You can be sure you are not going to miss a thing. As a screenless compact camera that hides behind your rear view mirror, the Blackview is managed from the Blackview mobile app. With Blackview seamless pairing, connecting with the Blackview app is a breeze. No need to enter pesky passwords. Just wave your hand near the camera to confirm it's you, and the app will let you browse the recorded videos, change settings, or connect your dash cam to the cloud effortlessly. When you're away from your car, you've got built-in voltage monitoring, so you can leave your car protected by Blackview's parking mode without fear of draining your car's battery. And thanks to the optional LTE connectivity module, the Blackview DR900X Plus Series dashcam keeps you always connected to your car from anywhere. This means you can receive impact notifications on your phone, check on your car with remote live view, and rest easy knowing that the live event upload saves impact footage in real time to the cloud, including the all-important 5-second pre-impact buffer. You can use the mobile hotspot function to turn your LTE connected dashcam into a Wi-Fi hotspot for up to 5 devices. The DR900X Plus series is available now in 4 versions, with the front camera only, paired with a rear camera, an infrared interior camera, or an AI-powered driver monitoring camera. So go to blackview.com/TST, blackvue.com/TST, and use promo code TIRE to get 10% off any Blackview dashcam with free shipping for orders over $200. blackvue.com/TST, promo code TIRE to get 10% off any Blackview dashcam with free shipping for orders over $200. Also brought to you today by Berryman. Berryman's B12 Chemtool Carburetor fuel system and injector cleaner is what I am using at Westside Collector Car Storage. We store cars for long periods of time. They sit, and over time that gas can go bad. And even though we run them to keep the gas moving through the fuel system, you can still have gum, varnish, other fuel residues from the fuel system, tank, lines, injectors, valves, rings, and pistons, etc. Berryman's high energy solvent technology helps deal with all of that. Regular use ensures higher compression, fewer repairs, lower operating costs, and increased spark plug and injector life. It's available in both consumer and commercial grade. It's catalytic converter and oxygen sensor safe, and it helps keep your whole system clean and stabilized, especially if, like I'm doing, you're storing cars for long periods of time. You don't want that fuel going bad. So this stuff would really help you out. Berryman's B12 Chemtool Carburetor Fuel System and Injector Cleaner really helps you keep that fuel and your whole system clean. Berryman products are all American made since 1918, available at your favorite automotive retailer or auto parts store, or at berrymanproducts.com, BERRYMANPRODUCTS.com, berrymanproducts.com. We're also brought to you today in part by Off the Record, the official ticket partner of the Smoking Tire Podcast. Why need a ticket partner? You never, ever want to just plead guilty to a ticket. Ever. Never, ever, 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 ever. Why? Because it's not about safety, folks. It's about a financial ecosystem that won't just punish you that one time. It'll punish you over and over when it comes to your insurance. There's the ticket itself, there's the court costs, there's the fees, the fines, and your insurance goes up for not months, folks, years. Get that ticket off your record. Keep it off your record with Off the Record by going to offtherecord.com/TST or downloading the app and using code TST10. You will get those tickets fought by professionals. Off the Record's network of qualified attorneys covers 97% of the U.S. population. All you got to do is go to offtherecord.com/TST, put in some basic information about yourself, send over a scan or a photo of the ticket you received. Off the Record handles the rest. And if they don't get those points off your record, you don't pay. It's that easy. I get notes every single week from people who used Off the Record successfully, and you can too. I use them myself. It's super, super easy, and it's worry-free. I love Off the Record. So download that app and have it ready to go. Use code TST10 on the app or offtherecord.com/TST. 10% off all legal services from Off the Record, courtesy of your friends at The Smoking Tire. All right, on this episode, it's a cruise show. I am back from my week in New York. Give you my review of the Cadillac Escalade. More importantly, I'm talking about Blue Cruise and SuperCruise, the hands-free highway systems that I have been using, and I find myself very impressed with GM's SuperCruise feature. Also talk to you about why flying sucks right now. I have chosen, me and my father chose a new color and spec combination for his new Cayenne. And Zach and I give you our review of the CYAN Racing Volvo P1800. That's today's cruise show on the Smoking Tire Podcast. Hello, everybody. What's happening? Did a week in New York. In theory, it was vacation. Didn't really feel much like vacation. The traveling was like such a pain in the ass. Like the flying was so horrible. And, it was just like a lot of family time, but not a lot of like activities. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go with my family to do this cool thing. It was literally just like, I'm going to go to my parents' house and sit around and be there. And like, I'm going to go to my wife's parents' house and be there. And
that can be exhausting.
Yeah, it was literally one of those, we need to see them. It's been too long. It's a holiday, when people gather. And so we have to do that. And
Does your mom do that thing where every time you go home, she has a new box of old shit that you need to sort through?
We did that at Hannah's house.
Okay.
Hannah's parents' house, we went through, because, my parents, they have a new house.
Oh, right.
Right.
So
when I go to stay at my parents' house, I'm basically checking into a hotel room. My quote room looks like a fucking hotel room.
It does. I saw a photo.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a hotel room. There's almost nothing of mine. There's a couple pictures of me that my parents have put up and some framed newspaper articles about me to indicate like, okay, this room is for Matt. But it's basically a fucking hotel room. There's nothing of my youth or anything in there.
They didn't print blog page screen grabs. They used newspapers.
At least they framed actual papers,
funny.
But it's not far off. Whereas Hannah's parents still live in the house that they built in the 60s and that her whole family grew up in. And there's all this history in it. And we fucking stay in Hannah's room that was her room growing up. And they've never changed it. They've never remodeled the house. There's fucking Van Halen posters on the wall. I mean, there's literally
That's cool.
The shit from her high school is still on the wall. Like, written in fucking marker on the wall of the closet, it says, like, Hannah loves Liam. And I'm like, who the fuck is Liam?
That's okay.
And she's like, it's the guy I went to prom with. And it's like, Liam's like crossed out. Like, obviously he wasn't.
By you.
Obviously, yeah. No, obviously Liam wasn't great. Because like, it was like, there was a real angry cross through Liam afterwards. But there's just so much like old shit. And so, yes, we did do a clean out.
Do you find Liam on Facebook and you DM him like, guess what I'm inside right now?
She showed me who Liam was. And it was a high school kid, obviously. Yeah. But then she showed me this amazing picture of like their table or whatever, because prom does have like, I guess, a sit-down portion with tables, and the face she's making, her dissatisfaction with Liam in the moment. The face she's making is like a real "get me the fuck out of here" face. It was really funny.
You're like, that's right. That feels.
But
good.
you know, we're digging out. You know, she's got all these like books from when she's kids, and we gave a bunch of them to my niece and nephew. But we found a bottle of unopened, with the tax stamp on it, 1961 Canadian Club whiskey that she took from her grandparents.
Wow.
Like her grandparents bought this bottle,
and she sold it in high school.
She stole it in high school,
never drank it.
Never touched it.
Wow.
And we found it. And I texted Johnny, I'm like, hey man, what's up with this? And he was like, at first he was like, is there a tax stamp on it? And I was like, yes, like the paper thing. And he's like, don't open that. It might be worth like crazy money.
Holy shit.
As it turns out, it's worth about $400, which still like, for a bottle that was probably like $5.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's not like it's a blue label. It's just like a general Canadian Club.
Canadian Club.
Club's not expensive whiskey.
No,
right?
no, it's not great whiskey. But oh, by the way, warning, at a certain point during this program, because I'm running the shop today, I'm going to get a text from one of our clients, and I'm going to have to send an Uber to the airport. And I'm sorry for breaking into our flow when that happens, but it's going to happen in the next half hour, and I'm going to have to deal with it.
All right.
Yeah, so we found this bottle, and for a couple $100, it wasn't worth necessarily selling, but had a few sips. Not bad. Not bad. Time has been kind.
Wow, it's like it's aged in glass.
Yeah, aged in bottle.
Yeah.
Time has been kind to that bottle, and it's worth keeping for novelty and drinking.
That's cool.
My dad also, someone gave him a bottle of Mouton Rothschild. You know, it's like $3,000 a fucking bottle wine.
Yep.
That I decanted for 6 hours, and it was delightful.
Hope so.
Yeah. You know, my parents, they don't really drink a lot, so people give them this expensive ass wine as gifts, and then it sits around until I come home, and my dad goes, "Oh yeah, look at this." I'm like, "Holy shit, look at that indeed."
What's a Grand Cru?
We literally, yeah, that's what it was,
I
like
bet.
Premier Cru, and we drank this bottle of wine with the shantiest dinner. Like, it was literally like we just ate frozen things out of my parents' fridge. Like, it wasn't like, let's make fucking tomahawk steaks, or really, it was literally like frozen chicken and this $2,000
Well, then the wine
bottle.
was able to be more flavor forward.
The wine was great.
Did it change every 20 minutes?
I didn't drink it over the period of decanting. I decanted it and then let it
just
sat
as the
there,
same,
and
yeah.
then we poured it and drank it. But apparently my parents, they got a few bottles of it, and apparently they had drank another bottle just by corking it and pouring it. And my mom was like, I've just learned what decanting does, because this tastes like completely different and way better from the one we opened the other night. I was like, yeah, this is like, it was 2005. I was like, the 17-year-old wine, you got to decant that shit.
Yeah.
Like for a long, not even for hours, you got to decant it. So.
Yeah. That's very cool, though. That's special.
But, dude, flying is fucked right now. Like, going to the airport, I like to take the first flight out. And wherever I go, especially if I'm going to New York or coming back, I like to take the first flight out.
Because you like to get up at 5 because you're insane.
I don't like to get up at 5, but I just feel like there's less chance of fuckery with the first flight out.
True. And if
it's
there's
not
fuckery,
like
you have more chances to get there.
Yes, and there's flights get delayed throughout the day. Things can snowball. This is late. It makes the next thing late, and blah, blah, blah. The first flight is usually, pretty good. I have a lot of luck with the airport. Is like a little less of a shit show. There's no traffic getting to the airport. Like, I don't like getting up at 4, but there's typically some. And when I get where I'm going, there's still some day left.
That's true, especially going east.
Yeah, if you fly out of here at noon going east and get there at 10 p.m., now it's the whole fucking day.
True.
Like you're not doing something before you go to the airport for that flight. That's still all day. Anyway, I'm on the 6 a.m. to New York. I get in the Uber at 4 a.m. because I heard it's going to be crazy, right? And I don't know if I'm going to get the upgrade. So I'm diamond. I didn't buy the upgrade, but I'm diamond and I'm high on the list. I'm like, ooh, I might get the upgrade, but I don't really know. I want to get there, whatever. I'm in the Uber halfway to the airport, and I get the alert that the flight's been delayed 2 hours, and I'm like, God damn it! So now, and I get there, and I realize why. The pilot hasn't had enough rest. That's what they tell us. They pilots need 12 hours for a turnaround, and they haven't had enough rest. So then, that's late. Then they change not the gate, the terminal. Now they go, you were going to leave out of Terminal 2. Now you're leaving out of the Bradley terminal. So you have to literally leave and go in the different terminal.
Quick announcement, Delta will be operated by Ryanair.
Dude. And then we finally take off 2.5 hours late, and when we land, our gate isn't available. So we sat on the tarmac for another hour waiting for a gate at the other end of this flight. It fucking sucked.
Yeah, then like
and it sucked for Hannah, who came to the airport to pick me up. So she's sitting out there like circling.
Oh God! And you're just watching movies on the plane.
And I'm just like stewing about how angry I am. It sucked so bad I got 10,000 miles from Delta for the inconvenience.
Oh wow!
They were aware of the suckage. On the way home, same fucking thing. Wake up at 3 a.m. because my parents live an hour from JFK. Wake up at 3 a.m. for the 6 a.m. flight. Make our way down there. Halfway to the airport, flight delayed from 6 a.m. to 8:50 a.m. Same thing. Pilot doesn't have enough rest. And so, fortunately, there were no further delays from that. But, like, then I get the upgrade, but my seat is broken and won't recline. So I have a first-class seat, but it is locked upright for the entire
church pew.
6-hour flight.
Yeah.
And
luxurious fighter jet seat.
But they don't have enough pilots. I think between people who took early retirement in 2020 and the beginning of 2021 when people were not flying and they can't keep up with the increase in travel, and pilots straight up getting COVID because no one has to wear masks in airports and on planes anymore.
Yeah.
They just don't have the pilots. I can't believe they're not wearing masks in airports and on planes. Like, that's fucking insane to me.
I've seen a lot of airport staff doing it voluntarily, which I think is very smart.
Yeah, and I of course, I do too. I'm not fucking going to an airport without a mask on. You kidding me?
Yeah.
But the flying, like, it's just a disaster right now. So just consumer advice. If you're flying fucking anywhere, I don't have any advice for you. Try not to.
What if you had the same pilot both directions and he's just hung over like that Denzel Washington
like
movie?
Flight?
Yeah. You know, he doesn't need more. He doesn't need more rest. They're like, you need coffee.
I mean, when the way to New York, when we landed, and because I don't think the original pilot was the pilot we got. I think they got a replacement pilot because we also had a different plane. And when we landed, the announcements of every 15 minutes, the plane still hasn't cleared the gate. The plane still hasn't cleared the gate. It was so exasperating.
Oh, you could tell he's getting mad. He was mad at the other pilot. With the plane still being there.
Yeah. I did actually get to test a vehicle while I was in New York. I got an Escalade.
Yeah.
Specifically so that I could use SuperCruise. I wanted to try SuperCruise because I'm doing a story for Road and Track about ADAS and hands-free. I have one picture down on the right in front of in my in-laws' driveway. That is a fucking Murica scene right there with the garage open and those chairs that are like from Walmart from the 70s, you know, and the Marine flag and the American flag and all of that. I got it to use SuperCruise. I literally called Cadillac and I said, I will literally take anything you have that has SuperCruise on it. I don't care what car it is. The fact that it was a candy apple red Escalade made it very Murica. But I have to say, SuperCruise was great.
So SuperCruise differs from Tesla and other things because it's geo-fenced, right? They basically mapped specific highways.
It's it's the same as Ford's Blue Cruise in terms of being geo-fenced. Ford has 130,000 miles of mapping. Mm-hmm. GM has 200,000 miles of mapping. Mm-hmm. They got a head start, like a 4-year head start. So they have more miles of mapping. GM also has some type of LiDAR system. I have to read a little more because I don't know if it's the mapping vehicles use the LiDAR and the the Cadillac vehicles do not have any kind of LiDAR, or if it did have some a LiDAR precision map data. So that's where they play with the words.
So they don't
right?
have LiDAR on the car.
No, they have mapping vehicles that use LiDAR. Okay. We used SuperCruise, Ford's Blue Cruise in the Lightning.
Yep.
I also have it in the Mach-E. And then Tesla Autopilot basically is the same type of, not the full self-driving city streets. The Autopilot is pretty much the same type of technology as SuperCruise and Blue Cruise. The real difference is Tesla's is not geofenced. You can just turn that shit on anywhere.
Yeah, I've turned it on
which is
2-lane roads that didn't have markings on them.
Yeah, I think that's dangerous.
I tested it, I should say. I wasn't like, letting it do its thing. I was like, does it work here? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. So and this is not, granted, I'm not doing science, right? Like we tested Blue Cruise in Colorado, and I tested the Mach-E Blue Cruise here in Los Angeles,
right?
And I did SuperCruise in New York. So it's not like I drove down exactly the same road at exactly the same time of day. It's not a scientific test. It's just like, how do these things work? And, in New York, the roads are windier. They're narrower. I used it on the Hutchison River Parkway, which is very narrow and winding. And in general, I was like super impressed with Blue Cruise. Like I got like almost all the way from Hannah's house, which is in Long Beach, New York, the southern shore of Long Island, to my parents' house in Connecticut. And the only times that I never had a disconnect except for a couple things. When there was an interchange and I had to go from one highway to another, if I'd be in the right lane and I'd signal that I was moving towards an exit ramp, it would say, your turn to drive. And I would take over. And then once I was on the new highway, I could hit it again and it would come back. It didn't like sharp curves. Mm-hmm. So in the couple instances where parkways in New York have pretty sharp curves in them and they're well marked and everything, it didn't like that. And I could tell, and it would disconnect in the middle of the corner.
Oh, do those curves have a reduction in speed?
They do.
The speed recommendation sign? Okay.
But in this particular, after it did it the first time, I expected it to happen again, and it did every time. So if it was a really sharp curve, it would give me a disengagement there. It wasn't happy with those. And then there were a couple places where the lane markings went away, and it said it disengaged there. But in general, like I was very impressed at this thing's ability to lane center without pinballing. Mm-hmm. It didn't bounce back and forth. It really kept a center lane. It steered very smoothly. Its inputs were super, super smooth, and the Cadillac has lane changing built in. So if you approach a car behind you on radar cruise, right, it will 4 minutes. Sorry, it will it'll say like I can make a pass, and it will make a pass. Also, if you tap the blinker, it will look for a gap and change lanes automatically.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I think is very cool. But the whole deal is kind of like, well, if I'm not steering, but I'm not supposed to be doing anything else, like what am I doing?
Right.
And so, I'm still wondering that. I'm still trying to process that. If I was literally doing like long stretches of highway for hours and hours at a time, I mean, I kept my hands off the wheel, ready to take over, but without actually touching the wheel for 15, 20 minutes at a time with SuperCruise.
Do you just have to hold your hands up like you're ready?
No, I didn't. I put them on my knees, or I could adjust the climate control, or I could rest them here. I never made them too far from the wheel. And 4 or 5 times I picked up my phone and then was like, don't, and put the phone back down. Like I said, like in the Lightning, mm-hmm. like the Lightning was basically the same as this, but not quite as good.
How is the lane discipline on this compared to the Lightning? Like the lane centering
Cadillac
is
was
always
better.
a good test.
The Cadillac was better. The Lightning was pretty good. The Lightning was better than the Mach-E, and the Cadillac was better than the Lightning.
Okay.
The Cadillac is the best one I've used. I mean, I
imagine
on freeways, Tesla's is good too. I will say this: if you use Tesla Autopilot and SuperCruise on the same situation, divided freeway, well marked, I think they're about the same. Yeah.
I found the one time I did a Tesla test, and granted this was like years ago, but it really relied on the clarity of the paint on the highway. So when the highway was concrete with white lines, it had a little bit more trouble than when the tarmac's black.
Right.
That contrast.
For sure.
So I don't know if maybe the LiDAR helps with that because they're scanning the whole shape of the road and they know where they are regardless of what the optics are, but I don't know.
There's a couple like bridges in New York, like not big bridges, like small little bridges where it's a grate. You know what I mean? It goes from cement or pavement to this grate.
Yep.
And one of those bridges was really short, like 100 feet. No problem going across that. But in some of the bridges, they were a little longer, maybe double, triple that length. It would say, I can't see the lines anymore. You need to take over.
Okay.
The disadvantage to this system was in the fact that it was in a fucking Escalade. It's an enormous vehicle, and it takes up so much space. And and there's places in New York where it narrows. The road narrows. And so there were a couple times where the car was fine doing its thing, but like other vehicles, because the road narrowed, got like real close to it. And I might have made the decision to inch over and the car necessarily didn't. So there was a couple times that Hannah, as a passenger, was like, "Ee," when someone got close along the side.
Maybe it was programmed like an Escalade should be, where it's like, I'm big, this is my lane.
Right.
Excuse you.
Yeah. And like, the Escalade, although I there's some trick software stuff in there, and I did enjoy SuperCruise for what it was used, what I used it for, although I will repeat that I very quickly found myself doing the thing you're not supposed to do, which is going for the phone.
But I mean, this is the thing, like, humans are not great at just sitting perfectly still.
Right.
Like, this is why meditation is a skill.
Yeah.
Because people have to learn to be still because we always need something to do. So it's like, you're not a complete passenger like you would be in a plane or on a bus.
Correct.
You're almost like a vigilant passenger, like a watchman, at a military base. Like, you got to stand there, but you got to pay attention the whole time.
Yeah.
But nothing's happening. You don't have to do anything. But if something needs to be done, you have to be ready to do it.
ready now to do it.
Versus keeping your mind active by actually driving the car. And I have also, like, I drove that the Telluride from here to San Francisco and back, and that had really good lane keeping assist, like really good lane centering and everything else. And I liked not having to be totally vigilant on I-5, which is straight as an arrow. I did feel more relaxed with not having to just pay attention constantly, like keeping my hands there. But if the road's twisty at all, you're then going to be a little bit more wary of what it's going to do.
Right.
And then you're like, well, I'm not driving, so I'm waiting to react to what the car reacts to, and it's just this weird circle for my brain.
Right. I was more stressed waiting for something to happen. I alternated between being too stressed, more stressed than if I was just using radar cruise control and steering.
Right.
And more distracted because I got too comfortable in certain cases.
Right.
If I was driving across Kansas or across Texas or somewhere with straight, well-marked, good, or even places in New York or California where you have straight, well-marked, open highways, I would really trust this system. Like, probably too much. Like, I would start doing other shit in the car. And that, I think, is a bit of a problem. But I did like Cadillac's steps of getting me back, like the seat vibrator thing. It was, it's got this, how Ferrari and some other supercar makers put like the LED shift lights on the thing. Yeah. It has an LED strip in the steering wheel that glows blue when the system is ready, green when the system is on, and flashes red at you when it wants you to take over.
I like that.
And so it kind of comes at you from multiple angles. Actually, remember in the Ford when I got a little too comfortable in the Ford and looked at my phone while driving and it said, hey, put your hands back on the wheel and take over?
Yeah, Mike Rowe yells at you.
It was pretty quick to do that. It was maybe 5 or 6 seconds of looking at my phone before it did that.
Because I think we noticed that the Ford had two sensors,
2 cameras
for attention.
Right.
Yeah.
The Cadillac has 1. It's right on the steering column.
Okay.
I tried to force it by looking at my phone over here for like 30 or 45 seconds, and it didn't intervene. Now, maybe it didn't intervene because it was a clear road and it was well marked, and the car was kind of like, okay, I got this. If I didn't try to do it on a super windy road because I wanted to be, because I was full of anxiety and paying attention, and there were like, to give both Ford and Cadillac credit, it'll let you know if the area is unmapped, if it's too poorly marked, if the conditions aren't right. Like it'll say, like on the Cadillac, it said like mapping data unavailable, no SuperCruise. There were some places, for instance, where I-95 transitions from New York into Connecticut, where they recently just did like a massive construction thing. And so the mapping data is not recent or accurate or whatever. And so even though it's like 3 lanes, perfectly wide, perfectly clear, brand new paint, well marked, it was like no. And it this 3 or 4 mile stretch right on the New York Connecticut border, it was like nope. And then as soon as it got back to the old familiar route, it was like now I'm available.
I mean, that's kind of smart because if they've done construction that updates things in some way or reroutes a lane, they don't want to assume it's the same shape as it was when they previously mapped it. So,
and the other thing that kind of bugged me about SuperCruise was it didn't, on a lot of New York's older parkways, the parkway is crowned and there are like old school drainage grates along the side. So if you've ever been in a car with a bad driver in New York, they don't avoid the drainage grates, and it's a gadung, gadung. If you're in the left lane, they crash through them.
Yeah.
And this car didn't avoid the drainage grates. It kept center, air quotes, center in the lane, but the left, it didn't go, hey, there's drainage grates, like maybe let's hug the right side, which is how I would drive it.
Right.
And so it doesn't, it probably could avoid potholes. I'm sure there's a technology that would allow it to,
maybe,
but
that seems risky because if you're
you don't want it swerving around.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's LiDAR mapped, you'd want to know. If it could be better, like it could have avoided those and not just ka-dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk.
I think
straight through.
I would want it to maybe say, hey, in a mile or a quarter mile, like you may want to change lanes because of these obstacles, whatever you want to call them. But I don't think I'd want the car moving over to avoid these things because what if there's a big truck there? What if someone else has encroached on the lane a bit? That just seems too nuanced.
Yeah, I like your solution.
Yeah.
Move over, potholes.
Just like ways,
up.
like, hey, potholes everywhere. So, yeah. I don't want it to Frogger for me.
Right. And like, it's driving an Escalade, it's like, it's so clear. Like, I'll give GM credit where it's due. Like 100%. This SuperCruise thing is really good. It's the best of these systems I've used in terms of having a technology that really does work. When it works, it works. And knowing when it would not be safe to use it because the data isn't available, and that's where those accidents would happen. You can't use it on a windy back road. You can't use it on a road where there's no divider. You can't use it on a road where there's traffic lights. It just won't work. It'll be like, nah. And like, I don't think autonomy needs to be universal. I don't. I think we could have this stuff work on the freeway where it's already the safest, most predictable conditions, and not have it work on the light to light, and that would be okay. But goddamn, Escalades are huge. It's so big.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious. Like, even though this is like the new one, and every time a new Escalade comes out, it's like a new Corvette. It's always a vast improvement over the old one. But like, I'm just so aware that underneath that is a $35,000 pickup truck. Just so aware, just the way it rides. It's got even though this one has air suspension, they can't hide it. It's totally there that this is a pickup truck with like nicer leather.
Do you think that is unfair to the rest of the abilities of the Escalade, or what it pretends to be?
It's got a lot of gadgets. You spend a lot of this thing's like over $100,000. You spend a lot of money. It's got night vision, in the screen.
Wow.
Good night. It's got what they're calling augmented reality, which is not really. It's got a heads-up display on the glass.
Pokemon Go in the dashboard.
No, it has a kind of. It's got it can make the gauge cluster a camera. Okay. Like a regular camera, not a night vision camera. That's just like, here's the real world and here's the real world on a camera. It's, you know what I mean?
Oh, so if you're looking down at your gauges, you still see what's in front of you?
You still see what's in front of you. And so if you program a route in the nav, it will put like a video game, in like a video racing game, if you're doing like a streets circuit, it'll have the chevrons, the glowy chevrons. It'll put chevrons on the video telling you where to turn.
Oh, I like that.
Which is kind of good. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's not. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to call it augmented reality.
No,
I think that's a stretch of the term. But it does put chevrons where you should turn.
It's a broad term. It's basically just like you are putting something over the image of reality.
It's a video overlay. It's not augmented reality.
That's really what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat, and
well, that seems like the new version of. Like when TomTom or the early navigation systems would have the lanes, and then they would have 4 lanes. Instead of just saying turn right, it's like, here's what the highway looks like. Use this lane.
Here are your lane choices. Exactly. Yeah, it stops short of putting a driving line on the video.
With brake marker.
That's when I would say it's augmented reality. When it actually puts a driving line on the video, now we're augmenting reality. And regular folks, non-enthusiasts. My in-laws' family were impressed with the gadgetry.
Okay.
They were impressed with the stereo. They were impressed with the screens. They were impressed with all that stuff.
How did they feel about the ride?
Nobody complained.
Okay.
Nobody complained.
I mean, these things sell so well. They're used for livery. They're not livery. They're used as limousines all over the place. Like when I've ridden in them on relatively smooth highways, like it is a nice way to get around.
Yes.
But New York is a good test of suspension damping and compliance. I mean, because the roads are
It has adjustable suspension, so, I mean, sport is way too stiff for anywhere in New York. It's not like you're going fast enough in this thing to, like, need the handling. You know what I mean? So Tour is the mode that you're pretty much always in. Obviously, the fuel efficiency is horrible, and it's a big giant truck, that trades size and gadgets for real, quality. Like a lot of the materials, although there's some nice leather on the seats, the center console would be what the cheapest stuff is that Porsche uses.
Right.
It's not. These guys don't spend a lot of time benchmarking S-classes and Panameras or Cayennes.
Well, these also cost significantly less.
They're less.
Right?
They're less.
So they have to save money somewhere.
Yeah, and it's just they're not hiding from me the pickup truck roots. Mm-hmm. And it's gigantic. I mean, it's just gigantic. And if you don't need that, so many people buy these things that don't really need the size.
Right. If you're not the Duckers, you don't need this many seats.
It was fortunate that they happened to give me this for the week, because my wife's extended family was all staying at this house, and we went in a couple places together, and it really helped. My in-laws, they used to have 2 cars each, and now they spend half their year in Florida and half their year in New York, so they put 1 car in each place, so they only have 1 car. My in-laws do. So I was like a bus driver for anywhere we went. We loaded up 7 people in the Escalade, and it was fortunate that I had it for that reason. But if you're not putting 7 people in it or using it to tow, because you can tow with this thing, or really using it for the things that it does, it's just such a waste of space and gas.
Yeah.
And your money could be used for something that's more truly luxurious.
You know what your average MPG was?
13.
Whoa.
Which is not as bad as it could have been. 13 for a week of mostly highway driving. It's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as I've seen.
I mean, it's not as bad as a TRX, but it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Second
It's
place.
pretty bad.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And this isn't the V.
No,
right?
This is the. I probably should have looked this up. It was the 600. It said 600 on the back. I don't know if that actually means 600 horsepower. I know this is a V8. I don't know a whole lot.
Motor Trend has a story that says this is what the 600 badge on its rear end means.
What does it mean? Is it like old gross horsepower or something? Like
represents the torque produced by the Escalade standard 6.2 V8 and available turbo diesel inline 6.
Okay, so it's the torque. Fine.
Except the engine's torque in the torque is in Newton meters, not pound feet.
Oh boy, there's some fuckery going on there.
Yeah.
Torque in Newton
That's like
meters.
losing weight by just using kilograms.
That's crazy because almost anyone who sees that badge is going to assume it's horsepower, not torque, and certainly not torque in Newton meters.
Yeah, so the V8 and the diesel 6-cylinder both make 624 Newton meters of torque or 460 pound-feet.
Yeah, it's a Corvette engine. It's an LT1.
Yeah, that's funny.
So it's okay.
That's funny.
Yeah, all right. That's hilarious.
They said Motor Trend says you can blame the overseas markets like China where the figure makes more sense. So
right. Great. We're badging our giant American trucks for the China market. That's good. That's some chicanery is happening there.
That's funny.
Yeah,
real
that's
quick,
dumb.
we actually were wrong about augmented reality. The definition is literally a technology that superimposes a computer-generated image on a user's view of the real world. Someone asked, like, isn't that what it is? And I Googled it. So what it's doing is actually augmenting reality.
Point taken. And technically that is what it is. It's just not like mind-blowing augmented reality.
I agree with you because I think when that term came out, it was with things like Pokemon Go or video games where it would like take all the buildings and make the landscape totally different using that. So that the change was more drastic using the technology.
Or like those cool Rabble wine bottles. Have you seen those? You know Rabble wine?
Yeah.
They have those cool like artsy labels.
Yeah.
And if you download the Rabble app and you pull up that and you point your phone camera at the label using the app, it makes this like crazy cartoon.
Whoa.
It makes like a whole like animated scene and does all this crazy shit.
Oh, that's cool.
So like yes, point taken, commenter, you are right. It literally is a digital image overlaid over real video, and that is what this does. It just doesn't do it in a mind-blowingly impressive way.
Right.
That's all. You're right. He's right. I assume it's a he. But just to go, the reason I got the truck was to try SuperCruise, and I found it to be very, very impressive, both in terms of what it would do and in terms of what it refused to do, if you tried to make it do shit at the wrong time. So it's cool. Really, it was fucking cool. I mean, really neat bit of technology. And I tried it. At one point, I went to lunch with my mother, and I used it for about 35 minutes on the freeway before she noticed.
Wow.
And that's how I know, because she was in the back. Hannah was up front, and she was sitting in the captain's chair behind my mother, and they're having a conversation, and they literally didn't notice. Like that's how good it is at being smooth and like lane centering and changing lanes.
That is
because
if it was disruptive to the ride, and Hannah would notice, she would call out like, "What are you doing up there?"
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so that was pretty impressive. Ordered my dad a new Cayenne. Sat down, Porsche configurator. We chose all the options.
Cool.
We went with the hybrid. Not the Turbo S hybrid, just the regular hybrid.
That makes more sense.
I was like, Dad, you do not need a turbo. You certainly don't need the Turbo S. Let's focus on what you're doing here.
Yeah.
And hybrid's got like 30 miles of EV only range.
That's pretty good.
Which for him, that means, running errands around town, going to the golf course, which is only, 8 miles or so away from his house. A lot of his everyday use will be electric only. And then it's got, of course, a gas engine, to go further. So we ended up going with, we went through the paint to sample. We had to have 2 screens up. We had 2 computers going to compare. They don't really, Porsche, like they let you, it shows the car with the colors, but you can't like compare 2 colors and click back and forth between them. So we had 2 laptops going.
You got to color balance both monitors.
Yeah, right.
What colors were they going back and forth between? Was it the
mostly the greens?
Okay, no, not the blue, the yacht blue thing.
We started by looking at the blues, but then he asked my mom to come take a look at it, and my mom has like a yacht blue Audi Q5, and she was like, "I don't want you to have the same color car as me." I was like, "All right, mom wins." So then we started looking at the greens, and we settled on Goodwood Green, which is fucking nice. Goodwood Green. Just type in Goodwood Green Cayenne, and it looks that top left picture there of the coupe. Yeah, that one. That's a Cayenne coupe, but Goodwood Green
cool.
is very nice. We're not doing gold wheels. We're doing the silver wheels. So it's the hybrid.
It's like a British racing green with a little bit of teal added to it.
Yeah.
Just like a tiny bit and a little bit more shine.
It's a really
nice.
rich color.
Yeah.
It's not, my dad didn't really like I showed him like racing green metallic, which was like a little kind of like light. And he wanted like a richer green. So we were looking at British racing green, and there's another, I can't remember, we looked at olive green. We looked at a few different greens, but he wanted like a really rich green. And he didn't want to go like paint to sample, only to have a car that didn't kind of look like it was paint to sample. You know, it's like 11 grand for paint to sample.
Yeah.
So he was like, he didn't want like a PTS gray, you know, like or something.
Right?
Where,
Isn't
like,
that is a waste
there's like 20 grays in
waste of money.
PTS. Yeah. So Goodwood Green, we got the 20-inch wheels, not the 22s, for some ride quality. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, like I mean that's a coupe. He got the full body, not the coupe, but he got the 20-inch silver Cayenne design wheels, which are really nice, and then he got the two-tone truffle and like it's like brown. It's like a dark brown, light brown interior where the door lowers are like a light brown with like a dark brown extended leather. He got air suspension with rear steer, heated cooled massage seats. Surround view cameras, like the adaptive sports seats.
Someone just asked, is it a plug-in hybrid?
Yes. It is a plug-in hybrid.
Cool.
Pretty nice car.
Yeah,
but
very nice.
50% in options.
Wow.
Yeah. Them shits add the fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean, and my mom was like, every time I'm like, Dad, do you want this? My mom would be like, oh, come on, that's optional. I'm like, Mom, go away.
Do you want the windshield?
Well, he didn't there's Power Steering Plus,
right,
which sharpens the ratio, and you get a smaller steering wheel for sharper steering. And my dad's like, $90,000 and this thing Power Steering's optional? I'm like, no, Dad.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, wait, what is it? Like, I knew it had power steering anyway, but I'm like, what is Power Steering Plus?
Yeah, they changed the ratio. Yeah, so it's sharper steering. No PDCC, but air suspension with rear steer. I mean, I was like, you got to get rear steer. You're going to love rear steer. Should be really nice, I think.
That's a very nice package.
Yeah, you got Bose stereo, not Burmeister. The Burmeister was like $7,000. I can't remember. He got aluminum trim dash. The Burlwoods were really expensive and looked kind of wonky. So he got the aluminum trim dash and adaptive cruise and, the standard stuff that like a 70-year-old guy would want to drive around Westchester.
Yeah. That sounds like a really nice setup.
It's going to be a really, really nice car.
I mean, almost like take note for people in LA or other cities that, are in the market. Like, so many people will just buy like the AMG or the S or the Turbo because they want to try to big dick the badge contest.
Yeah.
But like you're driving a car that's probably not as comfortable as if you got one of the middle ones with less suspension and whatnot. And
his Turbo he's got now is
experience.
a 17, right? And it's got 22-inch wheels, PDCC, with PASM and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And he's blown like 4 tires.
Jeez.
I was like, Dad, you get the smaller wheels, then you won't blow tires. It'll ride. He's like, yeah, smaller wheels.
His lap times are going to suffer. Like Lime Rock, he's going to come down on the time board a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's I think that's the right move.
That's very cool.
Goodwood Green is very nice. It's a really nice color.
They have a lot of greens. I got to go to the exclusive manufacturer thing in Germany, and they opened the drawers full of colors. There are so many. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many of these little 911s
there's probably like
with
60
paint.
or 70 colors available just on the website.
Yeah.
And then if you go to exclusive, there's like even.
I mean,
there's even
and then
more.
they'll do whatever you want. But
Yeah.
like they had many drawers with 30 little samples in each drawer. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fortunately, they did have our dealer, Town Porsche, Englewood, New Jersey. Shout out. My car is on the boat.
Nice.
Knock wood. But they did have.
I mean, you should really celebrate when it's off the boat.
I know, right? They had a build slot available for September. So September build, December delivery for the Cayenne.
Oh, that's quick. That's cool.
Yeah. And they gave him a good number on his trade. 17 Cayenne Turbo with 47,000 miles. They offered him $65,000. It's pretty good.
And used car prices are still pretty good. They've come down, I guess, in the last couple months, like 7%. But, you know, they were so high.
His is the ugliest Cayenne ever that he's got now. So that's time for that thing to go.
Black, right?
Black over dark chocolate with extended burlwood. It's hideous. And the sport design 22-inch wheels. Yuck.
I feel like extended Burlwood, you're trying to do an impression of a Bentley, but
Well,
you're
he
not
re-
doing as good an impression.
He realized when we built this car that the car he has now, somebody else built and then ditched it when it showed up. And that's how it ended up on the dealer. No dealer would build that. No dealer is just putting that much shit on the car. And so he's like, yeah, I guess someone built this thing and then ran away.
Well, it sounds like the one you guys built, someone would actually want after, you know,
Yeah, I
if
hope
you guys
so.
bail on it.
Oh, it's mad tasteful. Yeah, it's great. But I tried to get him to do the gold wheels, and he was not. He's like, I'm not doing that. He wasn't. I couldn't be talked into the gold wheels.
I wouldn't see him rocking that either.
No.
It looks good, but
Yeah.
I couldn't see
And
that.
certainly not in the smaller wheels. You gotta, if you're gonna do gold, it's gotta be like big rims. It's not like you don't get the smaller wheels in gold.
Unless it's a rally car and you're
Right.
running dirt tires, you know.
Yeah, well, okay, you could. There's certainly an argument for
That's
that.
your dad's style.
Right.
He's got Hoonigan hats.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do we want to talk about the P1800? We can talk about that too, or do we want to go to straight questions?
Both?
Let's do
I
P1800.
guess. I mean, we have, let me look at the number. We have a good number of questions because we also have to do another show soon.
Okay, well we can do P1800 then.
Okay.
The CYAN, Volvo CYAN P1800. I'm writing a story about it for Road and Track, and actually it's Monday morning I'm going back out with it to do the photos.
Nice.
This thing was real cool. Only got it for one day. But basically, CYAN is the company that used to be Polestar Racing. And then Polestar Racing sold their name and rights to Volvo, who then turned it into an EV brand. And then the racing team continued as CYAN.
Right. They've
won 4 World Touring Car Championships, driving Volvos and Geelys. But then they realized that there are, Lincoln Co. They realized that there's a lot of money to be made
in the throwback market.
Yeah. So if you look at, you got the Jaguar lightweight E-Type continuations, the Aston Martin DB5 continuations, the Singer reimagined 911s and Gunther reimagined 911s. Then you've got the blower Bentleys they're redoing, the Automobile Amos and their Lancia Delta throwback thing. There's a lot of money in these big dollar, high performance throwback cars. And so one of the coolest Volvos of all time is the P1800. So they said, well, why don't we make one of these that drives more modern? And so it's got a carbon fiber body that is bonded to a steel chassis. It's got double wishbone suspension, front and rear. It's got a 420 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder, 356 pounds of torque, making 39 pounds of boost with a Borg-Warner ball bearing turbo. It's got a 5-speed dogleg Hollinger gearbox, carbon drive shaft, independent limited slip differential with different final drive options. It's got big brakes, 14-inch AP racing brakes, P0 tires, 18-inch wheels. They've actually moved the greenhouse rearward a little bit from the stock car. It's not an exact reproduction of the stock car's body. They've given it a little more rake which is very cool, and you don't really notice until you look at them side by side. But it's aggressive, and Zach and I got to drive it for a day, and it fucking rips.
Yes, it does.
It's fast.
It's real fast. It
Yeah.
sounds old, which is cool. It doesn't sound like some new modern engine. I mean, it sounds old. It just has a bunch of turbo shove on it, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
The damping is so good. The suspension setup was great.
Yeah.
I mean, soaked up all the little canyon bumps, felt agile, responded so quickly.
The
to
turn-in was
inputs.
aggressive.
Yeah. It was
What I really
good.
liked about it was that you could feel the lightness.
Oh,
like
yeah.
a lot of other cars that are really light, it's 2,180 pounds. And a lot of other cars that are really light, they remove the power steering, they remove the hydraulic clutch, and they do a bunch of stuff that does save weight, but it adds heft to the controls. The controls on this are very light. They have feedback, but only enough weight to let you know that there's something there. You know, the power steering, the worst part about the car is the steering feel, but because it's an electric power steering system, but it has the right weight. And like the clutch has the right weight, and the shifter has the right weight.
Shifter is great.
Whereas if you drove
So
like a
good.
2,100 pound 911, the steering would probably be really heavy, and the clutch would be really heavy.
Right.
You know, and the controls on this are like beautifully light.
Because, well, I mean, I feel like there's modern cars that have figured out how to make controls light enough where the effort is low so it's not in the way, but the engagement and tactile feedback is great.
Right.
Honda is probably one of the best examples, Porsche as well. I think for reference, the shifter in this to me feels heavier than something like a Civic Type R.
Oh, it does,
But-
yeah.
But just as accurate, almost like in between Civic Type R and Tremec, like the T6060, where
The
that has a
shifter
little more
reminds
like
me of my
cha-chunk,
328.
cha-chunk. Like this
Reminds me of a
one's real
gated
good.
Ferrari, like
Yeah,
an
it feels
80s
like
gated
that.
Ferrari.
It's almost like you can feel metal gates under the shifter boot.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, and the build quality was good. It was really tight.
Yeah.
Not a lot. There was a little rattle from the shifter bushing or something.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was supposed to be there. I'm sure that this car had some mild. The car we have on the screen is I'm sure the same car we were driving, the prototype car. It had like 7,000 kilometers on it, which, you know, most like quote press cars with that kind of mileage on them would show some real signs of wear.
True.
This one really didn't, but that shifter bushing was a little bit. There was just a little rattle from it, but other than that, the thing was tight as a drum. The body fitment was great.
It looks amazing
awesome.
coming down the road. It is such a wonderful example of like just widening the fenders just a little bit,
Right.
like making the whole stance and everything look a little bit more imposing without at all changing the actual like original thought of the
Right.
car. And even the fact they moved the greenhouse and stuff. I had to look at pictures of this side by side with an old one to tell. It's really subtle.
It is. It's not a huge change, but it's enough where you go, oh, that does look more aggressive. You know, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
And same thing with like a 911 Speedster. You know, if you looked at a 911 Speedster, especially one from the 80s, you know, versus a Cabriolet, you'd go, at first you go, oh, something's different here. You know, if you didn't know what to look for right away. And then once you realize what it was, you go, oh yeah, that's way more aggressive. It has these really cool wheels. They're like 18-inch center locking wheels, and they are cool and they do look good, but I sort of wish they had an older school design on the wheels. Like it's a very new school wheel design.
Yeah, and there's something about it to me that just pro touring cars suffer from this as well, where it actually I think it makes a car look like it's been raised an inch too much. There's something about the size of the wheel and tire that seems too large for the body, the shape, and almost like the shape of the fender. And it just makes it look like it's sitting. Like, look at that. It's just to me, it looks like it's sitting an inch too high or something.
Yeah. I imagine there's a minimum wheel and tire size they can do to get it around those brakes.
Oh, for sure.
And actually, the only thing that is high effort is the brakes because they're totally manual.
Yeah.
There's no brake boosters. So that is interesting because it does take a little more pedal effort than you're used to on the brakes. It's not bad. It wasn't tiring, but you got to just mentally tell yourself, like, I can press these harder. I'm not going to lock them up. You just have to press them harder. And you can also left foot brake on non-power assisted brakes pretty easily, and that's nice. But I would have preferred an older school wheel design. That and the trunk and the doors don't have struts or detents to hold them open. Like, the couple criticisms I have for the car are not dynamics issues, like, at all. Actually, I have one dynamics criticism, but most of the car's almost perfect dynamically. But, like, the doors don't stay open when you open them, and so you have to, like, kick them to get them to stay open.
Which is a shame because, A, I'm sure the fabric on the door is expensive, so holding with your foot feels bad.
Yeah.
And 2, the hinges themselves are like beautiful pieces of milled aluminum.
Yeah.
And they look so good, and then the door just keeps swinging back into you. It's such a simple thing, but like
they should have consulted with Volvo a little more. And the fuel cell takes up the entire trunk.
Yeah.
So you really can't put anything in the trunk. And because the seats are fixed back seats, and with a cage behind it, you really can't put anything in the back either.
Yeah.
So
if you could lean the seat forward, you could put really small soft bags like on that parcel shelf / fuel cell thing, because they carpeted it.
Yeah, and you could shove a soft bag on the side of the fuel cell.
Well, there's also the old back seats that are no longer back seats, but they put fabric on them.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's hard to get things back there.
Yeah, and so there's 2 ways to solve this. One, if they put a hinged seat, that would help. If they change the shape of the fuel cell, because it doesn't need to be motorsport grade, you know, if they for that much money they could change the shape of the fuel cell so it would take up less trunk space. Or if they made it a wagon. And there is precedent there because there was a P1800 wagon, and they did say that if someone gave them, you know, if someone wanted to commission one, basically you'd have to pay for all of the tooling for the body work. Right. You know, if you paid them to make you a wagon, they could. And if you had the wagon, then you could fit more stuff in it. But the fuel cell takes up. It's hard to find a picture of it.
It's hard to find a photo of it. But anyway, you know, when you open the trunk, you're just looking at a fuel cell.
You're looking at a fuel cell.
And the filler cap sticks out through the trunk.
Yeah, there is one photo of that there. You don't have to open the trunk to fill the fuel tank, which is good because if you do open the trunk, there's no strut to hold it open.
Right.
So
you need a carbon fiber rod. And the other big complaint dynamically was the steering feel for me was just so off base from what the rest of the car was in terms of quality, agility, feedback. Like everything else was great, but it was like the electronic system was either too powerful. There was just almost no feeling coming through the front wheels, especially on initial turn-in and other stuff. I was really bummed.
I agree. There was not enough steering feel, considering how analog everything else was. Mm-hmm. But also, the steering didn't center itself. So I was for like a couple hours, I'm driving this thing going, I can't put into words what is wrong here, but it's something. And then I realized on Pacific Coast Highway coming back that if I turn the wheel like 1/8 of a turn to go through a sweeping corner, and then I took my hands off the wheel, it stayed there. And the car kept turning on that angle. It didn't center itself. And almost any car that you drive, if you take your hands off the wheel while going at speed, the car will attempt to go straight. And so I don't know if that was an intentional decision.
So I Googled what does that, and positive caster angle allows the steering wheel to self-center and increases directional stability. So it's possible, because we talked about this in the video, maybe you can give it an alignment because it's super adjustable. You could give it more caster that would do that, and they probably did what they did for a reason, so it'd be cool to ask them
what they told
why.
me was the suspension is totally adjustable, the alignment is totally adjustable, and we have set it for canyons. So my complaint about the car was, even though it was amazing in canyons, the turn-in was super sharp, lots of grip, the handling was excellent, it didn't really like to go straight. I had to make a lot of corrections to get the thing just to go straight on the highway that were the same kind of corrections that I usually see when people put too wide of a front tire on the car. Well, this thing only had 235s on the front, so that wasn't the issue. So we figured there was something in the alignment or the way that they had chosen to set up this car that favored a sharp turn in at the expense of straight line stability, and I guess is also where this thing came from.
I wonder what the steering weight change would be if you add positive caster. Like, obviously I'm not an engineer. CYAN Racing, they are engineers. But if it's adjustable, I wonder if, because everything affects everything else. So,
Yeah.
if the car is trying to go straight when you're in a corner, like a normal car, that means it's pushing against the wheels. Maybe that helps add weight to it as well.
Yeah, maybe. But having to manually unwind that steering, to center it yourself is strange.
Yeah.
And if they were building a car for me, I wouldn't want it set up like that. I would say, okay, we can dial back the turn in a little bit. It still turns in really nicely, but I want to be able to have a relaxed straight line cruise at the same time, because it was a nice, comfortable cruiser. It has air conditioning. It has Bluetooth radio. It's not like screaming its head off in fifth gear when you're on the highway. It's like pretty relaxed. If I wanted to get in it and drive that thing to Pebble Beach from here, from Car Week, it would not be a sacrifice really at all. The seat and the harnesses were not set up for me, but that's not the car's fault. If I was going to buy one, they would measure me and they would set it up how I wanted it set up. But from a powertrain perspective and we've modernized this and created a totally unique driving experience that is unavailable anywhere else, I think that's wildly successful. I mean, in a world where you've got a million different options to spend $500,000 on a Porsche, you're not going to see another one of these cruising around. And you could use it as a car. I mean, there's nothing about this that you couldn't just use as a car if you wanted to. I mean, maybe not daily, but there's nothing preventing you from using this thing just as you might want to use a car.
Super cool.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool.
It was great.
Yeah.
So I have a piece coming out in the next issue of Road and Track about this also, if you want to learn more. And of course, Zach and I have a video coming out as well. And if you got $750,000, maybe give them a call, because all the other modern cars that you can buy for $750,000 are not particularly analog. And,
very true.
I mean, they might be rewarding in their own way, but they're not like this.
I mean, it's a cool thing if Singer is amazing at what they do. They basically started this industry. But their cars cost what, over $1 million now?
They're
just
$1 million,
to make a deposit.
and now you can only get the turbo. You can't even get the NA one anymore.
And there's a lot of them and copycats and other things like this. It's cool to see something that is pretty out of left field, I think.
Yeah, this thing makes a splash. You roll up somewhere with this, and it's clearly something different.
Yeah.
But also very beautiful and mechanically very stout.
And Volvo, they don't really have the racing history of Aston Martin and Jaguar, so they don't have this, the marketing materials rarely include, do you remember when we won Le Mans in 72?
Yeah.
Because they didn't, but it's fine. So they don't have, this is more of a surprise to me from a company like them than it was for Aston or Jaguar to go, why don't we rebuild the greats, because people remember them, because that's when we used to win shit, or a time when we also won stuff. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very, very neat. Very cool car. All right, let's go to the Patreon. We've got a bunch of questions. Patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. Lots of things you can do there, from just catching the live stream to an ad-free listening experience to an extra show every month. Plus, you don't have to wait till Tuesday or Thursday to get the shows. You get them right after they are recorded on our time. Anonymity. What 2 to 3 car features are you most interested in the newest model, year, car, or car brands? Boy, is that worded badly. Basically, what are the features we are most interested in modern cars?
Right.
Well, Well, we just spent 20 minutes on SuperCruise, so I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Rear steer is becoming something that we're seeing in more and more cars. And I've really never been in a car that had rear steer where I wished it didn't.
Ferrari GT4 Lusso. Theirs wasn't good. Theirs made it feel like the back end was on a lunch tray.
Oh, okay.
But some of that could also just be programming. Because
Sure.
like in a parking lot, it was helpful. On Canyon Road, it was weird.
Okay.
But
fair.
I think if it's programmed right, all it does is make a large car more easy to maneuver and easier to live with. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
And it helps get around hairpins quicker.
Other features I really like are, I like the newest generation of headlights. The adaptive headlights that can turn around corners and the fucking headlights in the Lightning, where the high beams and low beams weren't just high, low, where it was a smooth sweep between high and low.
Yeah.
That really reduces fatigue.
I've read more about, I think, Audi's laser lights and laser lights in general, and I mean, if they perfect this technology, like the fact that it can recognize an oncoming car and not shine a high beam at that car, but keep the high beam on your side of the road on the signs near you, is very impressive.
Yeah, that's cool. Those are some features I like. Also, per thedrive.com, a Stellantis designer wants all in-car screens removed from the cabin. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. If you look at Bugatti, Bugatti has attempted all the way, going back to the Veyron, all the way, so 2006. They're two models. They don't put screens on their cars, and they do that for a reason. They want their car to look timeless. They don't have any problem spending the money on making really nice metal knobs and heavy controls.
Yeah.
And, if you're going somewhere where you need a GPS, that your phone is there, that kind of thing. Like, I'm sure there's obviously Bluetooth, to connect for calls and for your whatever. But, I a lot of times if you've got a cheap economy car or something at the lower end of the spectrum, a big screen can make it feel upscale. Mm-hmm. But if you've got a very expensive car, screens actually make them feel cheaper.
Well, because they'll show age probably more quickly than
they
a good
show
analog
age,
gauge or something like that.
and you don't have the opportunity to make a nice feeling knob. A lot of the difference between the controls of an expensive car or a cheap car from the 80s or 90s was the heft and the quality of knobs and those push and pull things and tactile stuff. And if it's all just screens, it definitely can take away from that. Plus, we're now at like screen overkill. The
Right.
EQS, the new Grand Wagoneer, there's screens like all over the place, and they glow at night.
Yeah.
They're not, they hurt your eyes. They're
I think
not
like
great.
the screens in the 911 I like a lot because they haven't gotten that big, and you can turn them off also, and they have a lot of other, either real buttons or decent capacitive ones around. Like I just feel like there is, like you said, we've gone too big. The trucks and everything else with giant tablets, cars with giant tablets. Like, there's just too much.
I think on a recent show, did we talk about the Saab night mode? Where you could. Someone on Twitter made a note to me that the new Cadillacs, the CT5, has that Saab night mode where it's just the 1 gauge speedometer and everything else was black.
That.
It was awesome.
Yeah, and I want to put a little bit of context on this story from the drive. So. I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name, but Terry Metros, who is the chief designer now for Citroen's offshoot, which is DS, he wants to remove all the screens. And he thinks it's a little stupid because, in fact, you don't have a dashboard anymore, just a big screen. That's not our philosophy. So it does seem like I don't know enough about DS, but
the company that sold one-spoke steering wheels and the wonkiest gauges ever is now saying that screens are no bueno.
Like, yes, it's under Stellantis, but I feel like the fact you go, it's Citroen, and then it's DS underneath, you go, oh, right, of course.
Right.
You want to do a little bit more French artistry and minimalism.
Of course.
But it still makes a good point. Like, we've hit too many screens.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think we need to have 5 screens across a dashboard. I don't think one screen is cool. I wish we didn't have. I understand the need for it, and I understand in some cases with the digital gauge clusters, but I'd rather have just regular fucking gauges most of the time.
Yeah.
Especially in premium cars.
And this makes me think of, premium cars now have so much accent lighting, which I think does trick your brain to thinking it's a more, luxurious environment. But if you turn off the accent lighting, you really notice how bright the screens and the gauges are. Yeah. That almost like softens that sharp contrast from like night vision, inside outside.
Yeah. But I see where the guy's coming from. Definitely. Jack Riley wants to talk about microdosing. I still have not smoked any weed. August 4th of last 2021 was the last time I smoked weed. Just finished the book Zach gave me called How to Change Your Mind, which I found to be very interesting, although it didn't specifically talk about microdosing very much. It really talked about much more about the effects of the therapeutic macro dose, where you sort of have a spirit guide, whether that's a scientist or a shaman, and you have a real setting where you have a blindfold on and you're really going to the light and taking a big dose and, seeing God, for lack of a better phrasing. But it was a very interesting book. And one of the things in the book that spoke out to me, that really related to me, was about your default mode network, which is phrasing that's similar to that Shrink told me about resetting your default. Your default mode network is what your brain does when it has nothing else to do. So in people who have an overactive default mode network can experience depression by dwelling on the past in their idle moments, or can experience anxiety by dwelling on the future in their idle moments. And I've had both of those. I think I do have an overactive default mode network. And in general, I think microdosing has helped. I've had a lot fewer thoughts of just general self-loathing. I've had, I've been stressed out from work stuff, but in general, I do think it has helped, and I'm going to continue doing it. Did I talk about it last show? I think I talked, was it the Pro Driver show where I talked about taking too big of a microdose and it being an actual dose? I think it might have been.
I don't know.
I think it was the Pro Driver show where I talked about, I found where the limit is between microdose and dose, and it's a pretty fine line. And I accidentally tripped a little bit the other night when I wasn't really planning on it.
I mean, the difference between landing a kicker on a motocross bike and crashing is like 6 feet.
It was pretty close. It was pretty close. But and because it wasn't the right setting, I wasn't really happy with what happened. But the microdosing, and this does not necessarily apply to everybody else. You should consult your own experts by all means, and not take medical advice from me. But just my personal experience for what my brain was doing, I have found it helpful, and I am going to continue doing it. Okay. Daniel's question is so long. He had this BMW 135. It's cost roughly $18,000 in maintenance since the day I bought it.
A year ago.
A year ago. He bought a 2010 BMW 135i, and it's cost him $18,000 in maintenance since the day he's bought it. Yikes. As the car sits, it has 110,000 miles daily driven in Pasadena with weekly drives to Malibu. It's in impeccable mechanical shape. I did not plan on spending so much money maintaining it, and in hindsight, there are other cars I could have bought, but as an unmodified manual example, it's something I enjoy driving and represents much of what BMW used to stand for. Would it be reasonable to expect that after such a thorough sorting, I could continue to put tens of thousands of miles on it over the next few years?
I mean,
that's
Lord,
a
I hope
Klapman
so.
question.
Well, I don't know the ins and outs of the 135 enough, but that is a fuck ton of money.
That's a lot of money.
So I don't know what hasn't been touched in that car. I would hope and imagine that with the amount you've spent on it, that yes, it should run for a number of years without issue, but I don't know enough about that engine and what is known for going wrong, what sensors are known for going wrong, is there carbon buildup, like all those things. So you could probably find that out in the forums. I mean,
I mean, don't
just
those cars like have a lot that needs doing at the 100K mark?
I mean, most cars do. BMWs definitely do. Like sometimes it's just cooling. Plastic parts when they're 100,000 miles old, or in this case, 12 years old, 11 years old, like plastic becomes brittle. It gets baked in the sun. It breaks. So like when anything that's made of plastic, expansion tanks, cooling things, like it just breaks. Radiators stop working. It's like that can cost you a couple G's. But 18,000, like I don't know what you did. I mean, I imagine you covered all of the fragile bases. I would hope.
Yeah. I mean, the question is like, how much of that 18,000 is regular maintenance that needs doing every 10,000 or whatever, and how much of that is once every 10 years or once every 100K?
Yeah.
If of that 18,000, 10,000 of it is the 100,000 mile service. Well, you've got 90,000 miles until you get, like, with an air-cooled 911, that top-end rebuild is 15 grand. It's every 100,000 miles. So you're better off buying a car with 110,000 miles on it that's had that service than buying one with 92,000 miles on it that hasn't.
Right.
That's how that, so I don't know what all of those items are that have needed doing. Some of them only need doing once every very long time.
Right.
And
I did a valve adjustment, I don't know, 2 months ago, and that's supposed to be done every like 40, 60,000 miles.
Yeah.
So, okay, I did that. I don't have to spend that money for another, I don't know, 4 years or something like that, however much I drive it. So, yeah, do that math. What are the things you just did that are long duration repair items, or repairing something that was broken from a previous owner, like a bushing, versus how much of that was like, yeah, you're going to be here every year for this.
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Yeah. I mean, in general, those types of cars, if you do all the maintenance, are reliable, but the maintenance is precise, the maintenance is regular, and that's the driving experience you want. You know, that's why it drives the way it does, because of those precise, annoying parts.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'd have a Corvette that was fast but felt like it was made of Legos.
Right. As Armin, our BMW friend, once told me, he's like, we bought a $60,000 car for $15,000.
Yeah.
Just because you bought it for 15 doesn't mean it costs 15 grand to maintain.
Exactly.
Equivalent.
James Cowley wants to talk about Bill's, the shit show in Malibu. Apparently it's gotten worse. I haven't been in a few weeks. Between Pikes Peak, July 4th, I haven't been up there on a Sunday in probably 4 weeks. Apparently the heavy crackdown has really begun. I do not recommend going there on a Sunday unless your car is 100% California legal. They're writing tickets for no front plate. They're writing tickets for window tint. They're writing tickets for no plates. They're writing tickets and making people pop hoods if they've got loud exhausts. They're being dicks. I mean, they're being dicks, and this is because the landlords do not want people going there anymore. They don't, and there's no way to reason with them anymore. They've decided that they don't want you there.
Wow.
And so I don't know what to tell you besides, if you're gonna go, like, I'm not gonna tell you not to go. I like Bill's. I went there before that was a fucking car show to get a bagel from my friend, and I'm gonna keep going for that reason. I've learned how to get around it. Way to get around it: 1, ride a motorcycle. They do not give a flying fuck about motorcycles. They let you right in at 8 a.m. You wave at the guy. They open the barrier. You go right in. You ride over the fucking curb thing, and you park right in front of Bill's. They don't give a shit about motorcycles. Way number 2, drive an electric car. I gotta go to the charger. They'll let you right in. You park at the fucking charger. But James's question is, are they trying to force the car show folks to rent the lot for an event because it's about money and the perception that people with interesting cars take away money from the shopping center? No, they don't want you renting the event lot. They want you gone. And it's not perception. The common sense says that people who go there are going to shop there. Oh, it's a full lot. Someone's going to shop. I don't actually think that's true in practice. In truth, I think they go to the restaurants, they get a coffee, and then they mill around the lot for 2 hours, and they're not shopping. I actually shop. I go to Vince. I go to Marine Layer. I go to. I
guess I would say, how often do you go to those places?
When I'm up there on Sundays, I do. I spend money in that shopping center. Personally, I do, but a lot of people don't. And so if it comes down to them choosing between someone who's going to buy a $3 coffee and then linger in the parking lot for 3 hours, or someone who's going to go buy a couple $100 of clothes, I get it. I don't think they're making the right choice. I think they could choose another method that could. I even said to one of the landlords who was nice to me and seemed like he was in over his head, "What can I do?" And I said, the same flyers you're handing out, hand them out and say, you are welcome to be here from 7 to 10. And at 10 a.m., we're going to start writing tickets for no front plates. And they're like, no, well, we don't want to be the bad guys who are doing that. And I go, well, it doesn't seem like the bad guys. It seems like a compromise. Take the parking lot when no one's here, have breakfast, and then the store's open and it's time for you to fuck off. Instead, they've chosen to shut the parking lots down, barricade the whole thing, and then write those tickets anyway. So they didn't listen to me, and I don't know what to tell you, but I just told you how to get around it. EVs, motorcycles. And if you're going to go on a Sunday, make sure your shit's in order, because they can't legally ticket you just for parking in a parking lot, even if you've got a LaFerrari. But if they find another, it's like, what's his name? What's the guy, the fucking Nixon guy? The guy who said, well, we couldn't make being black or being against the war illegal. So we cracked down on the drugs and we cracked down on this.
I don't know.
It's a very famous quote where they wanted to disrupt the black communities and the hippies. So they started the war on drugs in order to make those people's life worse, because you couldn't make being black illegal, and you couldn't make being a hippie illegal.
One of his aides,
Lee Atwater. I believe it's Lee Atwater. It's like the most famous Lee Atwater quote.
John Ehrlichman.
Oh, maybe it was Ehrlichman. Yeah.
Yeah, John Ehrlichman.
What does it say?
Okay, so the Nixon campaign, this is a quote from him, in 1968, in the White House after that, had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. That's a fucking quote.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? This is quote continues. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. Continues, we could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Wow.
Never heard that quote before?
No.
That's a very famous quote from the Nixon administration. So yeah, so think about it like that, right? They can't make it illegal to park in a public lot, but they can harass you for the state of your vehicle if you don't comply with the California Motor Vehicle Code.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. Tyler M., what is the explanation behind the generational naming convention used by Porsche? Initially, it was in order, but then it jumped back to 991 in 2011. I don't know where they get those numbers from, the chassis codes. Do you?
No.
I don't either.
I didn't have time to Google it, but I do think it's weird that the order of it, to me, I'm just like, we're going forwards and backwards? I'm very confused.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd have to look at their press
I don't know
release
if
for
there's
it.
necessarily if it's an order. Like, I think they might just choose new numbers. Like, I don't know.
They always have a reason for something, but I feel like sometimes the reason requires just another paragraph in the marketing material to justify why it is. I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. Andrew N. says, outside of buying multiple cars from them, what is the best way to build a relationship with a dealer? Well, that is the best way.
They like money.
They like money.
They're big fans of money.
Yeah.
They enjoy hanging out with money, being around money.
Yeah. I mean, it's a business. The best way to build a relationship with any business is to do business with them.
My guess is that if the dealer organizes some kind of event, track day thing that you can like pay for, probably, that doesn't require you to buy a car, that would be a way to like schmooze a bit and show them that, you know, you don't have $0, but you're just not ready to shop now. Maybe, I don't know if there's like Galpin or Porsche of Colorado, they do a lot of motorsport stuff. If they sponsor like a track day, you could go to that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if they have events, go to the events. Yeah. If they have a social media manager, you know, interact with their social media manager.
Slide in them DMs.
Slide in the fucking DMs, bro. But fundamentally, there's not a lot of shortcuts besides that. Do business with the business.
Right.
You know? And by the way, if what you want is a 911 and it's not a GT car, you should be able to go into a dealer and say, I'd like to get a 911. What will that process take? I have not bought anything before. There should be a way to do that. It's not, you can order a 911 and get one eventually. And if it's a couple years, if you're patient, you say, I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to put my name on the list, and when my name comes up, whatever your next allocation is. Oh, another way is European delivery. Mm-hmm. European delivery, I've learned, if you're willing to do that, does not count towards a dealer's allocations. So if a dealer has allocated 5 911s for the month of April, and you go, I'd like a 911, and they go, we don't have any allocations, and you say, but I'd like to do European delivery, that is an additional. So that
they can sell it to you,
they can
but you
sell
can pick
you
it
a
up
car,
in
and
Europe.
it won't come out of one of their other customers' pockets.
And you get to pick it up in Europe.
And you pick it up in Europe.
do a rad
and do
trip.
a whole thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So actually, that is the answer. The answer, I think the quickest answer would be extra allocations, European delivery. Most customers don't know that. Yeah. Okay, David says, I bought a Mark IV Supra a few years ago, mostly stock. While I love it as a weekend car, I don't love the attention it gets me. Should I sell it at a profit and buy a more mature car that doesn't get me followed home by 20-year-old dudes? Or should I accept that sports cars are extroverted vehicles and I have to be the Supra guy or the Vantage guy or the 911 guy?
I think the Supra is going to get you more attention than a Vantage or a 911. I mean, 911 is definitely the most stealthy of those three. The Supra is like, I mean, it's fucking Katy Perry in her height of fame right now. Like, the Supra was popular in the 90s a little bit, then real popular in the early 2000s, and now it's a superstar.
Yeah.
So you are driving a car that is, at the height of its appreciation, probably.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cars you can buy that are much better driving cars than a Supra.
Yeah.
That won't get you followed home by dudes. I mean,
if you drove a C5 or C6 or 7 Corvette, you'd get some comments, but you're not going to get followed by excited people on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, V8, I mean, I don't know where you live, David, but most cities in America, if you drive a 911 or a V8 Vantage or a very nice car, you might get a look. Someone might say hi at a gas station, but no one's following you home.
Yeah, you're driving a car that has a cult following.
Yeah.
A big, big cult following, and also the general investor market is also interested.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many people coming to talk to you.
Yeah, and Supras are nice cars. They're made well. I get the appeal, but they don't drive that great.
They feel heavy. They're good GT cars.
They're fine, but for the kind of money you could get for one today, and I don't know about today versus tomorrow, but today they bring good money. You could probably get out of it at a nice profit.
Yeah.
Objectively upgrade, and that's a win.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could sell a car like a Supra for more than you paid for it, maybe even get your insurance and your service money back while you're at it, that's an upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of fun cars you could get and drive that won't get you followed home by 20-year-old dudes. Charlie says, which automotive journalist has the best personal car collection?
I don't know everyone's collection, but like Harry Metcalf.
He's not a
strong.
journalist, but I would say
he like owned a magazine.
He owned
right?
Evo for a while,
Yeah.
but then he was a brand representative. I would say in terms of this question, Harry Metcalf probably falls under the blanket that would qualify.
I think Harris's cars is pretty rad too, because he's got like a rally car and a couple of estates and some other things. I mean, he has a pretty cool mix of stuff.
Harry Metcalf has some winners.
But Harry Metcalf has.
I mean, he's got some
F40.
real winners. He got an F40. He's got some very
And a
rare
Countach.
Porsches. That Jaguar coupe, the XJ coupe he's got, fucking rules.
And he just bought a purple. What's that? They took the Jaguar XF, no, the XE, and then they put like the big engine in it. And
the Project 7 or so, whatever
he bought
it is.
one of those. I think it's his second.
Yeah, I like Harry a lot. Harry is an exceptional chap.
Oh.
The XJ Coupe is one of my favorite cars. That's a little less. That's the Jaguar 2-door pillarless coupe, gorgeous, and he did full restoration on his with with some engine upgrades and suspension upgrades, and fucking cool.
He's a champ, and he drives his shit hard.
I think Harry's the champ.
Hat tip to Johnny Smith of the Late Break Show. If you want to see every car in Harry's garage, Johnny Smith did a good chat with Harry.
Yeah. Honorable mention for Chris Harris. And by the way, I kind of like my own cars too.
The person said, like, I like yours too.
That's fine.
He did.
He didn't have to, but I get it. Derek Yagan, has EV ownership changed the way that you view the transition of appliances / motorsports from gas to electric? I think, yes, a little bit. The more I think about EVs, the more I think about the things that could be electric that before cars. Like lawn equipment. Frankly, like lawn equipment. I was just at my parents' house in Connecticut, and it's amazing. They live in the country, in those beautiful woods, these fucking big stately mansions. And we were there, and Hannah and I would walk around the neighborhood, and it's just fucking lawnmowers and leaf blowers. And the number of fucking gas engines running, no catalytic converters, so loud, and I just go, God, all of this could be electric.
Yeah. I've seen some people, there's some areas in LA where they made a law saying you had to use electric leaf blowers.
Yeah.
I don't know how many companies adhered to that because the fine is probably
we use them here.
Enforceable.
We use electric leaf blowers here at
Westside
Electric Car Storage.
Or on the street near me, it's really quiet.
Yeah.
And I've been on streets where I'm like, maybe you told me, someone was like, every day of the week there's a gardener at a different house.
Yeah.
So either the neighborhood has to agree that one day a week we're all getting our gardening done, so the rest of the week is kind of quiet, or change those things to electric.
I tried to tell that to my parents, and they were like, no, there's not enough gardeners for that. They need to work at a different house every day. And they're like, no, it's great. They only can work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. I'm like, that's so much fucking gardening, Mom. Why couldn't it be Monday, Wednesday, Friday only? And they're like, oh, they'd never get all the houses done. And I was like,
so it's probably only a few companies because there's only so much business to support.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
but these are big properties. These properties are 2-3 acres of landscaping. It takes 4 or 5 guys basically all day to do it. Mm-hmm. So I understand. But and this is fucking real white people problems kind of shit, But it's even more crucial in denser areas where the noise affects even more people.
Right. And if you're operating a lawnmower or leaf blower at your own house, the difference in noise and its effect on your hearing could be significant as well. I know there's a cost thing and all this other stuff, but...
And these are smaller appliances, so unlike an electric car, you could have interchangeable battery packs much easier. And you could go home and have a charging array, or go to your home base, whatever it is, have a charging array. You could put a solar panel on the roof of the trailer that could trickle charge. Use an F-150 Lightning to be rotating batteries and charging. And yes, I understand. I don't talk to a ton of gardeners, so I'm sure there would be some other challenges there. But I think a lot about appliances that are currently powered by gas, especially in the world of gardening, that probably should all be electric.
Yeah, and there was this article years ago that one leaf blower puts out more CO2 and shit than a Raptor.
Right.
This was
they're
the
fucking
6.2 Raptor.
2 strokes.
Right.
No catalytic converter, 2-stroke engines. These things are just cranking out emissions, and they're running them all day. What, did someone have something interesting to say there about leaf blowers?
Someone says they love their Ryobi, but I don't know what appliance they're talking about.
That's the yellow one we have. We have 2 electric leaf blowers here.
Okay.
The orange one that plugs in, that we drive that we use to dry cars, and then the wireless one, the yellow one, which is the Ryobi that we actually use to blow leaves. Yeah, the Ryobi's good.
Nice. I agree with that.
But that does have me thinking, and it also has me thinking about autonomous vehicle applications. Also, the other thing I was talking about, EV applications for airport vehicles. Vehicles that spend a lot of time sitting and that don't go very far and don't have to go very fast and tow, heavy things, short distances. Airport tugs, those luggage tractors. All them shits could be electric.
Maybe I would need to know like what is the torque required on like.
Well, they already have
tow.
the guy. I met a guy at Pikes Peak who was a pilot, and he was asking about the Lightning, and I brought this point up, like, yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a pilot," like, and he pulled up pictures of their new electric plane tug. And he's like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
He's like, this thing fucking has so much torque, and it moves the planes around.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so like they can do this. He's like, he said they're working on that. But so anything that has a predictable, repetitive use case, right? Because with EV cars, it's all about, well, what if I want to go to Flagstaff? And the planning involved. But if I was driving the same 60-mile loop every day, I could build something for that use case. Mm-hmm. And never have to worry about those.
That's why I think the plug-in hybrid makes more and more sense for cars, and then maybe more appliances can use the extra batteries left over for that kind of stuff.
I would love a plug-in hybrid that had 60 to 80 miles of electric. That would really be my. And I had the Volt, and maybe you'll get one that was like 45 miles, and that was great for 90% of the time.
Right.
But I would go back to a plug-in hybrid. Okay. Wait, what?
So, interesting article. Christian Pelfrey says, did we see that Golf R sales went up almost 24,000% in the year of 2022, despite having all the bad capacitive other things. So I pulled up the article.
Is that correct?
Technically it is correct, but it's one of these silly things where it's like in 2021 they sold 5 because it was a brand new car and it wasn't even on sale to the public until it's one of those silly
December.
Things. Yeah.
Like
so
the all of calendar year 2021 was wait in 2021.
They sold 1 in quarter 1 of 2021 and only 4 in quarter 2 of 2021. And then, but the Golf R didn't officially go on sale.
So that's not real math. That's just fun. Yeah, that's just fun with metrics.
Exactly.
That's not really what that means.
Right. So it's not like they sold 1,000 and then the next year they sold
25,000. No, yeah, when you're going 24,000%, but you're comparing it to 1, that's like not real math. Please read the article, sir, and not just the headline.
Very silly.
James O. What is the cleverest vanity plate and the funniest you've seen in the wild, says James. I mean, the one I put on our NASCAR engine powered Cobra was "Make You Poo," which I thought was excellent. Technically, it was "Makeup 00." And I told the DMV I was a cosmetics salesman.
That's funny. They're like, what car is this for?
Yeah. But it was "Make You Poo." And I have yet to see a better one than that.
LA, I have realized, is full of vanity plates. I was on the Apex Adjacent podcast, and they have a fun license plate game, which is like a mix and match thing. And so I started paying attention to them more. But there are so many people in LA with custom plates, and they're rarely like that clever. I saw a Fiat 500 at my PT place that had break a leg on it. And
that's funny.
They had a USMC sticker, but also like a SAG-AFTRA license plate frame. So I wasn't sure if they had like broken their leg in service and they were getting treatment, or if they're an actor and they're like break a leg. So I thought that was kind of a fun little dumb meaning thing. But I don't know. Corbin Goodwin posts them up all the time, and there's some crazy shit.
I see far more awful ones than I do really good ones, but I don't remember most of them. They kind of go in one eyeball and out the other one.
Yeah,
they don't stick. Wyatt B says, I know E46s are better built and have nicer interiors, but I prefer the looks of the 36. My question is, which chassis do you prefer to drive? 46.
Of non-M cars?
I prefer the 46.
Yeah, I prefer it because the steering wheel is adjustable. The E36 doesn't have adjustable steering. So right there, the ergonomics are already flawed.
Yeah.
Chassis, I mean, I don't know if they're full race cars. Maybe the 36 feels lighter, but...
No, I like the 46. Yeah. Eric Hargraves said, I traded in my ZL1 for a Kia Stinger as it was impossible to turn down the money and I needed something I could daily as I've sold my second car. Missing my Camaro a lot, looking for another car that's kind of crazy and fast summer car, but for a modest price under $20,000 Canadian.
That's $10 US.
That's like nothing. In today's market, does this car even exist anymore? You're in C5 Corvette land.
100%.
That's
you are a Corvette person.
That is the land of the C5 Corvette. I mean, crazy fast. There's very little crazy and fast for that little money. You could do some like
that's 15 grand.
Yeah, you're in Corvette. You're in C5 Corvette land.
Yep.
Maybe even C4 Corvette land. I mean, 15 grand will get you like a pretty decent C4 Corvette.
But will that feel fast?
No,
exactly.
But it's 15 grand. It's not a lot of money. Like,
but a C5 maybe with some parts will feel quick.
Yeah, you could buy someone's modified C5 for probably 15 grand. It's going to be a janky shitbox. But
I think that's your best bet because you don't want to get. There's nothing. Can you get anything supercharged for $15,000?
I mean, aftermarket for sure. You could find like a blown fucking Mustang or something. There's a new Edge Mustang out there with a blower on it for 15 grand,
and it'll feel about as fast as a C5.
It'll
with headers
turn
on it.
fuel into noise like nothing else.
Yeah,
get a motorcycle.
Oh my god,
15 grand gets you a lot of motorcycle.
If you want crazy
and
fast, that's the answer.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a snob, but 15 grand's not a lot of money if you want to go fast.
The word crazy is very key here. If you want something crazy fast, you either have to take away all the weight and find someone's Exocet project that has a crazy engine in it, or you got to buy a motorcycle. You just find a V8, something with a V8. So I think a Corvette.
Yeah, Corvettes, Mustangs.
Yeah.
Nicest one you can afford, really.
100% Corvette over Mustang.
Yeah.
It'll feel fast.
Yeah. Corvettes are pretty quick. Even the C4s, like a post facelift C4, which is like the 92 to 95, when they got the round back, like those are pretty quick. When they got the LT1, like that's a pretty quick car, and they drive better than they look like they would drive. They're all right. They're Legos, but they drive okay.
The interiors are so bad.
Yeah. I saw one slammed on bags with some cool wheels recently, and I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
I thought I would hate it. It was like an interesting vibe.
It's a cool looking car. I think it looks more like sinister and has more attitude than the C5 does.
Yeah.
C5 is a good looking car too. But the C4 interior is
it's terrible.
Bad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening. Do we have any guests this week? What do we have going on this week? Zachary, do we know?
I don't believe we do.
We should work on some guesting. We should definitely work on some guesting for this week. I'm doing the CYAN shoot on Monday. Donnie, we got going out to visit my busted ass Ferrari 328 on Tuesday.
Oh yeah,
man, Donnie's he's putting in a lot of work. We talked price money the other day.
Oh boy.
Oh, and it was scary.
Oh god,
it was scary.
He's like, here's what you owe. You're like, what? Why don't you call me before this?
Yeah, no, it was scary. There's a lot. I mean, some basic stuff costs a lot of money, but what are you going to do? I told him that if he finds something broken, I want it fixed properly. And I also told him that I only want to do this shit once, and then I want to drive this car for many, many years. So let's just fucking do it while you've got it.
Right.
And not cheap out on shit now, because cheaping out on shit is how we got here in the first place.
Well, you can hang out with the guy that fixed his 135.
The steering rack needs to be replaced. It was fucking loose, like literally loose. And the CV boots were incorrect for the car. Someone just like put a fucking whatever CV boot on there.
These are off a Honda Civic. Those should be fine.
I don't know where any of this shit came from. But we're putting all the correct things on the car. So it should be basically unrecognizable from a driving like if that's how it drove broken, like I bet it'll drive amazing now. Like
yeah, it should.
So
yikes.
But we're gonna go visit Donnie and see how that's going on Tuesday. And we'll figure out a show for you later next week. That's our show. See you later.